Welcome to the world of science function. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening. The gleaming silver ship drifted through the inky blackness of space, a monolith of human ingenuity. Earth had long known that they weren't alone in the universe, but the official arrival of the Empire, an intergalactic coalition of advanced civilizations, was still met with equal parts awe and dread. Humanity had always been the underdog, scrappy and innovative, but undeniably outgunned in the technological arms race. Now, as the Emperor's emissary made its approach, Earth's leaders gathered in the war room beneath the rocky plains of Nevada, where they would face the ultimatum they'd dreaded for years. President Amelia Carter, a steely-eyed woman with years of crisis management etched into the lines on her face, watched the holographic display as the Empire's ambassador emerged. The emissary was tall and humanoid, but clearly alien. Its shimmering golden skin rippled like molten metal, and its eyes glowed faintly, as if it were perpetually scanning and calculating. It carried itself with an air of supreme confidence, a creature that had never known defeat. People of Earth, the ambassador's voice resonated, perfectly calibrated to convey authority and power. You have been selected for integration into the Empire. Surrender your sovereignty, your military, and your independence, and you will be granted the privilege of surviving under our protection. Amelia's fist clenched under the table, but her voice was calm when she spoke. And if we refuse? The ambassador's metallic lips curved into a faint smile. Refusal is ill-advised. Resistance will result in your complete and utter annihilation. The Empire does not negotiate. For a moment, the room was silent. The holographic projection of the ambassador stared down at them, unblinking, as if it already knew their answer. Finally, Amelia stood, her gaze steely and unwavering. We'll consider your terms, she said, her voice carefully neutral. You'll have our response within 24 hours. The hologram flickered and vanished, leaving the room bathed in the cold blue light of the war table. Amelia turned to her advisors, who were all speaking at once, their voices a cacophony of fear and outrage. She raised a hand, silencing them. We're not surrendering, she said firmly. Not without a fight. Across the table, General Marcus Hayes, a grizzled veteran with more battles under his belt than most had years in their lives, nodded grimly. But how? We've seen their firepower. One Empire dreadnought could wipe out half our fleet. Then we don't fight their way, Amelia said. We fight our way. Unpredictable, unconventional, and, her lips quirked into a wry smile. Maybe just a little bit crazy. Meanwhile, halfway across the globe, Dr. Lena Kim was pacing the cramped quarters of her underground lab in Seoul. A brilliant astrophysicist and arguably the best mind on Earth when it came to alien technology, Lena had been recruited into the government's top-secret think tank years ago. Now, as the news of the Empire's ultimatum spread, she found herself pulled into the fold once more. We can't outgun them, Lena said, running her fingers through her jet-black hair as she stared at the chaotic array of alien tech scavenged from decades of clandestine operations. But maybe we don't have to. What if we could disrupt their systems? Hack them, even? Her assistant, a lanky young man named Ravi, frowned. Hack the Empire? Isn't that impossible? Maybe, Lena admitted. But the Empire's strength is also its weakness. They're so advanced that they've stopped thinking about problems like we do. They've forgotten what it's like to be desperate. Ravi's frown deepened, but he nodded, his fingers already flying over the keyboard. All right. Let's see what we can cook up. As Earth's leaders scrambled to prepare for the inevitable, the streets buzzed with whispers and rumors. Across the cities and towns, humanity's trademark stubbornness and ingenuity came alive. Engineers tinkered with prototypes that had long been shelved as impractical. Hackers convened in shadowy forums, sharing snippets of code and wild theories. Farmers with rusty old machinery began converting their tools into makeshift weapons. Earth had always been a patchwork of cultures and ideas, but now, for the first time in centuries, it felt united by a singular purpose: survival. Among the chaos, a group of unlikely allies was forming in a rundown garage in Detroit. There was Alex, a former mechanic turned inventor, whose specialty was making something out of nothing, Maria, a no-nonsense survivalist with a knack for improvisation, and Kwame, a robotics prodigy who'd dropped out of college to pursue his own experiments. They'd never met before the Empire's ultimatum, but fate had thrown them together, and they quickly found themselves at the heart of a burgeoning resistance. "This is insane," Kwame said as he soldered wires onto a battered old drone. "We're up against an empire that's been around for, what, thousands of years? And we're supposed to beat them with duct tape and scrap metal?" "Exactly," Alex said, grinning as he tightened a bolt on what looked like a makeshift railgun. "That's what makes it so crazy it just might work." Maria rolled her eyes but couldn't hide a faint smile. "Let's just hope the Empire's as overconfident as they seem." As the hours ticked by, the countdown to Earth's decision loomed ever closer. Across the globe, humanity's finest minds and most unlikely heroes prepared for what felt like an impossible battle. Yet, in the face of overwhelming odds, a strange sense of determination began to take hold. They might not have the Empire's firepower or resources, but they had something else, the unyielding spirit of a species that had always refused to back down, no matter the odds. And so, as Earth's leaders reconvened to deliver their answer, the world held its breath. The Empire had given them a choice, bow or burn. But humanity, in its infinite stubbornness, had made its own decision. They wouldn't bow. They wouldn't burn. They would fight. The Empire's ambassador had left, but its threat hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. Across the world, the scramble to prepare for war took on a fevered intensity. In the underground bunkers of Washington, Seoul, and Berlin, strategies were debated, revised, and discarded as fast as they were conceived. Earth's leaders knew that conventional tactics were doomed to fail. To survive, they would have to rewrite the rules of engagement entirely. In Seoul, Dr. Lena Kim was hunched over a console, her eyes scanning lines of alien code. Weeks earlier, the Empire had underestimated Earth's capacity to intercept their communications. A fragment of data, a mere whisper in the vast ocean of their transmissions, had been captured and painstakingly decrypted. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Lena's task was to turn that fragment into a weapon. "This encryption," she muttered, mostly to herself, "it's like nothing I've ever seen. But there are patterns, small, repeating sequences." Ravi glanced up from his own workstation, his face pale with exhaustion. "You're saying you can crack it?" "Not crack it," Lena said, her fingers dancing over the keyboard. "But maybe I can corrupt it. If I can inject a loop into their command algorithms, it could create a cascade failure. Imagine their ships losing coordination mid-battle." Ravi's eyes widened. "That could actually work. But how do we deliver it?" "We'll figure that out later," Lena replied, though the question gnawed at her. Time was running out, and the Empire would not wait for them to perfect their plan. Meanwhile, in the Detroit garage, Alex, Maria, and Kwame were deep in their own preparations. The makeshift railgun Alex had been working on was almost complete, its barrel gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. Maria was assembling explosives with materials she refused to disclose, while Kwame's drones buzzed and whirred, their artificial intelligence evolving with every tweak he made. "We need a way to get close to one of their ships," Maria said, her voice clipped. "All the firepower in the world won't matter if we can't reach them." Kwame nodded, his eyes fixed on a drone's visual feed. "These drones can go undetected for short periods, but the second they engage, their sensors will pick up on the activity. We need a distraction." Alex grinned, wiping grease from his hands. "Leave that to me. I've got an idea." The trio worked through the night, their camaraderie growing despite the grim circumstances. They were an unlikely team, but desperation had forged them into something greater than the sum of their parts. By dawn, they had a plan, risky, untested, and possibly suicidal, but a plan nonetheless. As preparations continued across the globe, the Empire began its own maneuvers. Massive dreadnoughts emerged from hyperspace, their sleek forms blotting out the stars. They positioned themselves strategically, each one capable of obliterating entire cities with a single strike. The Empire's confidence was absolute. They had crushed countless worlds before, and Earth would be no different. But Earth was different. The humans' defiance wasn't born of ignorance or arrogance, it was born of necessity. For every weapon the Empire unveiled, Earth's people devised a countermeasure. For every tactic they anticipated, humanity found a way to subvert it. It wasn't just a war of technology, it was a war of wits, creativity, and sheer determination. In the Nevada War Room, President Carter stood before a map of Earth's defenses. The holographic display showed red blips, the Empire's forces, encroaching on the planet's orbit. Blue markers represented Earth's scattered resistance, a patchwork of military installations, hidden bunkers, and hastily constructed outposts. "How long do we have?" she asked, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Hours," General Hayes replied. "Maybe less. Once they're in position, they'll start their bombardment." "Then we need to act now," Amelia said. "What's the status of Operation Shadow Strike?" Hayes hesitated. "It's unconventional. But if it works, it could buy us the time we need." Amelia nodded. "Then we proceed. Give the order." Operation Shadow Strike was the culmination of weeks of frantic planning. It involved a fleet of modified spacecraft, a mishmash of repurposed shuttles, experimental fighters, and civilian transports, all equipped with Lena's experimental hacking devices. Their mission was to infiltrate the Empire's formation and deploy the corrupted code into their systems. It was a long shot, but it was the best chance they had. As the fleet launched, the world watched with bated breath. The ships streaked through the atmosphere, their hulls glowing red-hot as they entered the vacuum of space. Inside, the pilots, a mix of seasoned veterans and civilian volunteers, braced themselves for what lay ahead. They knew the odds, but they also knew what was at stake. "This is Captain Reynolds," a voice crackled over the comms. "Remember, stick to the plan. Stay in formation until we're within range. And whatever happens, don't stop fighting." The Empire's ships detected the fleet almost immediately. Alarms blared as energy weapons charged, and the battle began. Earth's ships darted and weaved, their pilots relying on sheer skill to evade the enemy's firepower. The hacking devices were activated, sending Lena's corrupted code hurtling toward the Empire's systems. For a moment, it seemed to work. The Empire's ships faltered, their movements jerky and uncoordinated. But then, as quickly as it had begun, the disruption ended. The Empire's systems adapted, purging the corrupted code and resuming their deadly efficiency. "We've been compromised," Captain Reynolds shouted. "Abort the mission." But for many, it was too late. The Empire's ships unleashed a devastating barrage, tearing through Earth's fleet with brutal precision. On the ground, Amelia watched the carnage unfold, her heart sinking. They had gambled everything on Operation Shadow Strike, and it had failed. Yet, even in the face of defeat, humanity refused to give up. In Seoul, Lena and Ravi worked frantically to analyze the Empire's countermeasures. In Detroit, Alex, Maria, and Kwame prepared for a daring new plan. And across the world, ordinary people continued to resist in whatever ways they could. The Empire's ambassador returned, its holographic form towering over the war room. "Your resistance is futile," it said, its tone almost mocking. "Surrender now, and your extinction may yet be avoided." Amelia's jaw tightened. "We're not finished yet," she said, her voice defiant. The ambassador's glowing eyes narrowed. "Then you have chosen destruction." As the hologram vanished, Amelia turned to her team. "We need a new strategy," she said. "Something they won't see coming." And so, the preparations continued, the stakes higher than ever. Humanity was battered but not broken, and the fight for Earth's survival was far from over. The Empire's assault had begun in earnest. Massive dreadnoughts loomed in Earth's orbit, their shadows casting ominous patterns on the surface below. Each strike from their energy weapons sent shockwaves across the planet, reducing entire regions to smoldering ruins. Cities fell silent, their vibrant lives extinguished in an instant, while humanity scrambled to mount its resistance. It was a grim tableau of chaos, but amidst the carnage, there was also resolve. Earth's people were no strangers to adversity, and they had no intention of going quietly into the night. President Amelia Carter watched the live feeds from the war room, her jaw set in determination. The situation was dire, but humanity had one last card to play. It wasn't a perfect plan, far from it, but it was bold, audacious, and entirely unexpected. And if there was one thing humanity excelled at, it was surprising those who underestimated them. "How close are we?" she asked, her voice cutting through the tense silence. "Team Alpha is in position," General Hayes replied. "They're waiting for the signal." "Good," Amelia said. "Let's make sure it counts." In space, aboard a makeshift stealth craft cobbled together from salvaged parts, Alex, Maria, and Kwame prepared for what could very well be their final mission. The craft was cloaked, its systems emitting minimal signatures to avoid detection. They were headed for the heart of the Empire's fleet, a suicide run designed to deliver a crippling blow. Their target was the flagship, an immense vessel bristling with weapons and defenses. It was the command hub of the Empire's assault, and if they could take it down, it might buy Earth the time it needed to regroup. "Are we really doing this?" Kwame asked, his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted the controls. "You can back out now," Maria said, her tone firm but not unkind. "No one would blame you." "No," Kwame said, shaking his head. "I'm in. Just, let's not screw this up." Alex chuckled, though there was little humor in it. "No promises." The craft slipped through the Empire's formation, its cloaking systems holding steady despite the strain. Inside, the trio worked in unison, each movement precise and deliberate. They knew the stakes, and they knew there was no room for error. The tension was palpable, but so was their determination. They had come too far to turn back now. Back on Earth, Lena and Ravi were executing the second phase of the plan. Using the data they'd gathered from previous skirmishes, they had developed a new type of virus, one designed to exploit the Empire's over-reliance on centralized systems. If deployed successfully, it could disrupt their fleet's coordination, turning their greatest strength into a vulnerability. "The signal is ready," Lena said, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "But we only get one shot at this. If they detect us before the upload is complete, we're done for." Ravi nodded, his face pale but resolute. "Then let's make it count." As Lena initiated the upload, the virus began its journey, traveling through the Empire's communication networks. It was a race against time, and every second felt like an eternity. The room was silent except for the hum of the computers, their screens flickering with lines of code. Outside, the sounds of battle raged on, a constant reminder of the stakes. In orbit, the Empire's fleet moved with mechanical precision, their ships aligning for a coordinated strike. But then, something unexpected happened. The flagship faltered, its lights flickering as systems began to malfunction. The disruption spread like wildfire, affecting nearby ships and throwing their formation into disarray. It wasn't a complete shutdown, but it was enough to create an opening. "That's our cue," Alex said, gripping the controls tightly. "Maria, you ready?" "Always," she replied, arming the craft's payload. "Let's give them something to remember us by." The stealth craft broke formation, its cloaking systems deactivating as it made a beeline for the flagship. The Empire's defenses reacted immediately, turrets swiveling to track the incoming threat. Alex pushed the engines to their limit, weaving through a hail of fire as alarms blared around them. The ship shuddered violently, but it held together, a testament to their ingenuity and sheer stubbornness. "Almost there," Alex said, his voice strained. "Hold on." As they approached the flagship, Maria activated the payload, a series of high-yield explosives rigged to deliver maximum damage. The craft slammed into the ship's hull, and for a moment, everything went silent. Then, with a deafening roar, the explosives detonated, ripping through the flagship's core. The shockwave spread outward, engulfing nearby ships and leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. On Earth, cheers erupted as the live feed showed the flagship's demise. It was a moment of triumph, but it was short-lived. The Empire's forces regrouped quickly, their fury evident in the ferocity of their attacks. Earth's defenses were holding, but barely, and it was clear that the battle was far from over. In the war room, Amelia turned to General Hayes. "What's the status of our remaining forces?" "We've taken heavy losses," Hayes replied. "But we're still in the fight. If we can hold out a little longer, we might have a chance." Amelia nodded, her mind racing. The plan had been a gamble, and while it had dealt a significant blow to the Empire, it hadn't been enough to turn the tide. They needed something more, something unexpected. And then, an idea struck her. "Get me Lena," she said. "I have a crazy idea." As the battle raged on, humanity's resilience was put to the ultimate test. The Empire had underestimated them once, but it was clear they wouldn't make the same mistake again. The final confrontation was looming, and Earth's fate hung in the balance. Yet, even in the face of overwhelming odds, there was hope. Humanity had always thrived in the impossible, and this time would be no different. The aftermath of the flagship's destruction reverberated across the battlefield. The Empire's forces faltered, their once perfect coordination unraveling as the virus Lena and Ravi had deployed took root deeper within their systems. Still, the fight was far from over. The Empire's remaining dreadnoughts were regrouping, and their retaliation promised to be swift and merciless. Humanity's window of opportunity was narrow, and every second counted. In the Nevada war room, President Amelia Carter was on her feet, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Lena, do you have the specs I requested?" Lena's face appeared on the holographic display, her expression equal parts exhausted and determined. "I've got it, but I'm not sure it'll work. It's never been tested at this scale." "We don't have a choice," Amelia replied. "Run me through it." Lena took a deep breath. "The virus has destabilized their command network, but it's only a matter of time before they purge it. If we can amplify the disruption using a concentrated electromagnetic pulse, we could knock out their fleet's central AI core. It won't destroy their ships, but it will leave them effectively blind and vulnerable." "And the downside?" Amelia asked. "The EMP will fry every electronic system within its radius, including ours," Lena said grimly. "We'll be throwing ourselves back to the Stone Age. But it's the only way." Amelia's gaze swept the room, taking in the faces of her advisors, each of them grappling with the weight of the decision. Finally, she nodded. "Do it. General Hayes, mobilize every remaining asset. We have to protect that EMP delivery team. This is our last stand." Across the globe, humanity's forces rallied for the final push. In the Detroit garage, Alex, Maria, and Kwame worked tirelessly to retrofit one of their surviving drones to carry the EMP device. It was a painstaking process, every step fraught with the risk of failure. But they had no time for doubt. "This thing better work," Alex muttered, securing the EMP device to the drone's undercarriage. "It will," Maria said, her tone brooking no argument. "It has to." Kwame added the finishing touches, his fingers moving with practiced precision. "There. It's ready. Let's get this thing in the air." As the drone lifted off, its engines humming softly, the trio watched it disappear into the night sky. They knew the odds were slim, but they also knew what was at stake. This wasn't just a battle for survival, it was a battle for humanity's right to exist. In orbit, the Empire's dreadnoughts loomed like harbingers of doom. Their weapons powered up, preparing to deliver the final blow. But before they could strike, the drone arrived, slipping past their defenses with a combination of stealth and sheer audacity. It navigated the chaos with unerring precision, its onboard AI guiding it to the heart of the enemy fleet. On the ground, Lena and Ravi monitored the drone's progress, their screens filled with data streams and visual feeds. "It's almost in position," Lena said, her voice tight with tension. "Just a little further." The drone reached its target, hovering in the shadow of the Empire's central AI core. With a final command from Lena, the EMP device activated. A blinding pulse of energy erupted from the drone, spreading outward in a devastating wave. The effect was immediate. The Empire's ships went dark, their lights flickering and dying as their systems shut down. For a moment, it was as if the entire battlefield had been frozen in time. Cheers erupted across Earth's command centers, but the celebration was short-lived. The EMP had taken out more than just the Empire's fleet. Communication lines, power grids, and defense systems across the planet were crippled. Humanity had won the battle, but the cost was steep. In the Nevada war room, Amelia addressed her team, her voice resolute. "We've bought ourselves time, but the fight isn't over. We need to rebuild, to adapt. The Empire will come back, and when they do, we'll be ready." In Detroit, Alex, Maria, and Kwame emerged from their garage, gazing at the darkened skyline. "We did it," Kwame said, his voice filled with awe and disbelief. "Yeah," Alex replied. "But this is just the beginning." Maria nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Let them come. We'll be waiting." And so, humanity stood battered but unbroken, united in the face of an uncertain future. They had defied the odds, outsmarted an empire, and reclaimed their right to exist. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but they would face it together, armed with the resilience and ingenuity that had brought them this far. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, casting the planet in a golden glow, a new chapter began. Earth had chosen to fight, and in doing so, had proven that even in the darkest of times, hope could prevail. Humanity had survived, not because of its